Okay, welcome to video 4 in our series of animating here. We're going to be doing this control animation with multiple layers with parenting, and we're going to get started on that right away. So let me now save here, and we're going to get started. This is what we want it to do. We want everything to be able to rotate and shift locations, and then come down and magnetically snap that A into place. So in order to do that, because we have different layers here, we need to put these layers together by causing them to have parenting. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump on our first arm. If you notice that this is called, we need to find arm number 1 right here. Arm number 1. Okay, and that is just a small arm. We're going to rotate it to see how this works right now before we do any of the work on the scene. So we can open this up to find rotations, or we can use our hotkey, which is R, and that opens up rotation. Now, if you notice, I click on rotation here, and I scrub this over. It is rotating around this anchor point. This clear dot in the middle with the compass rose has the center of our part by default, and everything rotates around the center of the part. So I'm going to hit undo or set this back at 0. Okay, and that puts it back where it was. Now we want to change that, and we want to put it so it rotates right on the middle of this bottom hinge. I'm going to grab my pan tool because this lets us move things around in here. If I just grab this now, it moves the whole part. And I don't want to do that. I want to be able to slide that anchor point around without sliding the part. So up here, that's what this pan tool will do. It pans my anchor, and I can grab that. And now I can slide my anchor over manually and put it in the middle of my part. Okay. When we do that, now if I click on my rotation, you'll notice that it's actually working as a hinge, and our part rotates around that. Now, that's independent of the rest of the project, and we're going to have to attach those there. So I'm going to set this back at 0 again, or hit undo. Control Z will undo it. And we're going to go on to the next step. So what we want to do now is, the next step is going to be pick width, and that's where we attach one arm to the next. So let's click on next. All right, so pick width, this pick whip is going to be this little coil that we see under our parent and link. Okay, so we set a parent and a link. We can do it in a rather speedily function here. So we want to make sure that arm 1 is back at 0. We did that for rotation. Now with it in its current location, we want to attach arm number 2 to arm number 1. So I'm going to go to arm number 2 here, and I'm going to find the pick whip. If I hover over there, it will confirm it. That's the coil. I'm just going to drag it down to arm number 1. Could I do it right here? Yeah, but I want to make sure it's going to be there. Now we see that there's an attachment under the parent link. It's saying that arm number 2 is attached to arm number 1, which is number 4. Okay, so if I rotate arm number 1 now, watch what happens. Okay, we have the arm number 2 and arm number 1 rotating together. I'm going to undo that, Control Z, put it back at 0, and we are going to go on to the next one. So now we're going to set pick width to set the rest of the relationships, because right now we only have 1 and 2. What we need to do now is we're going to go up and find the top layer and parent it to arm number 2. So here's top layer. I'm going to click on it just so I can make sure I get the right one, and I'm going to snap that to arm number 2. Okay, now click and drag the rotation of angle of arm 1 and see what happens. Here we go. They all move together. Perfect. That's what we want. I'm going to set this back at 0. It's going to be the first thing in the next step probably. And all right, everything is back. Now that we have our parenting set up for these 3 layers, arm 1, 2, and top, what we need to do is we need to set up our animation so that the layers move together in our animation. So we're going to select all 3 layers in our timeline, 1, 2, and 3. I can do that by holding down Shift. And we are going to click R so that we can rotate those independently, and rotation opens on all 3 of those layers. And to start our animation, do you remember what we do? we're going to animate with our stopwatch. So I'm going to click the stopwatch for rotation on one of the selected layers to add keyframes to that one. I'm going to do it on my arm number 1, and that turned on the stopwatch for all 3 because they're all highlighted at the same time. So now we see keyframes added to our animation. All right, so that's when we're at 0. Now, next thing we need to do, we are going to slide our time indicator forward to 15 frames so that we can have some new keyframes recorded for our scene. So here, if you notice my zoom, I have these listed in sections with seconds and frames. So I'm going to zoom in and change this until I can read 15 frames. Okay. So when I zoom in, you can see I have 5 frames, 10 frames, 15 frames, 20, and then here's 1 second. So I'm going to slide my timeline over to 15 seconds. Okay. And then we're going to adjust arm number 1 here to 70. I'm just going to type it so I don't have to try to find it. Arm number 2 is going to be -18. Now, if you notice, they are all jumping together. So before I can do that, let me undo this. I'm going to click off on my bottom space here to just deselect it. Now I can do them independently. Arm number 2 is going to be -18. Okay, and arm number 3 is going to be 0. Now, now what are we going to do? We're going to scrub, and so if I scrub back, we see there's an animation so far. For the first 15 frames, it's moving down. Now I'm going to slide this over until I hit 4 seconds in my scene. I can see 1 second. Okay, I can't see 2. It's kind of off here. If I hold here, I can fast forward. Here's 2, here's 3, and here's 4. 4.00F. All right. Now, and the final step, scrub this. We're at 4 minutes, and we snap down to the A. If I scrub, what's happening here? Oh, you know what? This is what we have to do. At 4 minutes, let's insert a key in here. There's no key because I didn't change any of these. But let's just, don't hit the stopwatch button, okay? Let's actually kick and add a key there. And here and here. What happens if we do that? Okay, so we go down, boom, boom, boom. Okay, and I want to see my whole composition. That messed things up, so let's undo that. So undo, Control Z, and let's zoom out here. Let's watch our animation now. So we go down, zap, the A comes up, and we have our animation. So the arm moves together like a real machine, and the final step will adjust the order layers to make it look a little more natural. That's what we're going to do here. We want to drag and reset the layers so that they make sense in our scene. So the description says when setting up our parenting between multiple layers, it's usually helpful to stack those layers in an order that makes sense when we're linking things together. Sometimes that doesn't visually work. We need to change the stacking of layers so the letter A appears under the magnet. Okay, right now you see the layer A is kind of sticking to the top of the magnet. So in order to have it go under the magnet, we need to drag it under. So we're going to drag the top layer below arm 2. So here's top layer. We're going to drag that down under arm 2. I can collapse these because for this we're done with the rotation. All right, so the top layer is under arm 2. Now I'm going to go on, drag the magnetic A below the top layer. So I'm going to grab magnetic A and drag that under top layer, and that snapped and covers up the A. That's what we're looking for. It looks a little more realistic, and we are done. So I scrub my timeline. I'm going to hit the spacebar, let it play. It comes down, magnet clicks, and the A snaps into place. We're ready to render composition, add to a render queue, and we're going to set the name here. Control with parenting start is fine. Put your name after it, Mr. K. And I'm going to save. This is what you're going to turn in. Hit render, and we are finished with number 4. In our next video, we're going to be adding some animation with a motion blur. So join me in that one and keep on designing. We'll see you in the next one.